It's my pleasure to welcome you all to this talk on equal access for an inclusive and progressive society by Ms. Haben Girma. I request you all to kindly switch off your cell phones or keep it in the silent mode. Thank you. Over to Rajul Padmanabhan, Director Vidyasagar, to give a small welcome.
On behalf of Vidyasagar, Connect Special and Madras School of Mathematics, a warm welcome to Haben Girma and all of you today for this talk. Vidyasagar is an organization which has been working with disability for the last 31 years. It was started by Poonam. She's here. By Poonam, a mother of a child with disability. And we started from a small little garage, and today we are in a customized, completely disability-friendly building in Koturpuram. Though we offer rehabilitation and education in a special setting, our belief is that disability as a marginalized group should be part of mainstream society. And towards this end, we have been working on inclusion, from inclusive education in schools and colleges to advocating for civil and political rights. In India, not very much has happened, but as Dr. Anand Lakshmi always says, that everything you say about India is true, but the opposite is also true. So though not much has happened, a lot has also happened. And therefore, it is really gives me great pleasure to welcome Haben Girma, who's brought about so much change in her own country. It's going to be extremely educational and motivational for us to listen to you, Haben. But I think Bhavna is going to tell you more about Haben. I just want to say a few words about Bhavna. Bhavna is the editor of a magazine called Connect Special, which addresses disability issues. And she was a student of Vidyasagar and then Lady Andal School, then went on to study commerce at Ethiraj College. She then started a boutique for ahimsa saris, for selling ahimsa saris, and then decided that that was not really her passion. Her passion was to write about disability issues, advocate for them, and spread the message around. And therefore, she started this online magazine called Connect Special. Professor Sundar, the third person in this triangle, is a mathematician. And actually, it was Professor Sundar who goaded Bhavna to invite Haben. And once Bhavna invited her, with no idea that she would say yes, and when she said yes, there was much excitement all around. So then she approached us and said, would Vidyasagar like to be a partner in this whole thing? And of course, we were very proud to be so. So again, that's how this whole thing started. Professor Sundar, Bhavna, Vidyasagar. That's what got the whole thing going. Professor Sundar is also very, very passionate, I can't see him anywhere, a passionate advocate of disability. And he and Bhavna and Vidyasagar are part of a group called DRA, which is Disability Rights Alliance, which is actually a group of activists all around the city that come together and address issues of at the state and at the national level. So it was very important for us to be part of this lecture, keeping all this in mind. And therefore, Haben, we are all waiting to hear more from you. So once again, a warm welcome to everybody here and to Haben. And over to Bhavna to introduce Haben.
Thank you, Rajulaka, for all the support. I'm here to introduce Ms. Haben Girma, but before that, I need to thank two individuals for prodding me to make contact with Haben. Thank you, Mr. George Martin and Professor Sundar. And of course, Haben for accepting my invitation and making this evening a reality. A big thank you from the bottom of my heart. I feel honored to introduce Ms. Haben Girma, an Access and Inclusion Advocate. Ms. Haben Girma has many feathers in her cap. She has earned recognition as a White House Champion of Change, Forbes 30 Under 30 leader, and BBC Women of Africa hero. Her work has been recognized and honored by President Barack Obama, President Bill Clinton, and many others. Haben holds bachelor's degree in sociology and anthropology. She is a graduate from Harvard Law School. She enjoys salsa dancing, surfing, and traveling the world. She is a member, Board of Directors on Disability Rights Bar Association, Helen Keller Services, and also an ex-board member of DEF. She was an attorney at Disability Rights Advocates, Berkeley, California till last April. At present, Haben, as an access and inclusion advocate, provides accessibility training, diversity consulting, and public speaking services. She is passionate about designing digital services and developing policies that will ensure a future that offers opportunities to everyone. Haben, you must have been introduced like this many times, but to me, the following statements from your articles and interviews reflect your individuality and what you stand for. So I would like to share them here. Spend the time to listen to the dreams of your friends and help them find ways to transform them into reality. My success at school, in the office, and even on the dance floor were facilitated by communities that chose to practice inclusion. Write your story without using the word inspiration, a word originally intended to describe fresh excitement for new ideas. Inspiration is sadly often used in a way that increases marginalization. I celebrate the growing number of people who recognize our shared humanity. While time, training, and creativity will lead us to our goal, I prefer to prioritize some goals over others.
Good evening, everyone. It's an honor to be here. I can't believe that we're here. It took a lot of people to come together. Huge thanks to Bhavna for organizing this and asking me to come here to tonight. So please give her a round of applause. My name is Haben Girma, and the name Haben comes from Eritrea, a small African country. When my grandmother tried to take my older brother to school, they told her deaf-blind children can't go to school. She took him to the Eritrean school for the blind. They said, sorry, he's deaf. We can't teach deaf kids. Then they went to the Eritrean school for the deaf. And they said, sorry, he's blind. We can't teach blind kids. My family then moved to the United States, and I was born also deaf-blind. And we discovered communities that value diversity and inclusion. The teachers there said, we don't have all the answers, but let's try. Let's innovate solutions. Let's try to make this work. And that's how it should be. Inclusion is not about knowing all the answers. It's okay if you don't know. It's about the desire to find solutions, the desire to learn and make things work. And that's how it should be. And that's what I encourage communities to try to do all over the world. In 2010, I entered Harvard Law School as their first deaf-blind student. Harvard told me, we've never had a deaf-blind student before. And I told them, I've never been to Harvard Law School before. It was an opportunity to learn for both of us. So we brainstormed, what are the potential challenges and what are the potential solutions? At that time, Harvard was willing and interested in learning. And we brainstormed and worked through different situations, different kinds of interpreting, sign language, voice transliteration, text to Braille. We tried different things until we found a solution that worked. Harvard hasn't always been like that. Helen Keller, when she was trying to go to school, Harvard wouldn't admit her. Back then, Harvard was only for men. Helen's disability didn't hold her back. She was brilliant, smart, hardworking. Her gender didn't hold her back. Women are brilliant, smart, and hardworking. It was the decision of Harvard at the time to exclude an entire community, the community of women. Over time, Harvard has changed and made the smart decision to open its doors to women, people of color, and people with disabilities. People with disabilities are brilliant, smart, and hardworking. It's up to communities to realize that and open their doors so everyone has opportunities. Harvard changed, and other communities can change as well. My grandmother that I told you about back in Eritrea, when she learned that I graduated from Harvard, she was amazed. She thought maybe I have superhuman powers. And I told her, no. Lots of people are brilliant. It's just that Harvard has changed over the years and is now opening its doors to more communities. And you all have the power to change your community and make it inclusive for everyone. That's my main message today and always. It's our choice to make our communities inclusive. Whether in Eritrea, Chennai, or other parts of the world, it's up to all of us to come together and decide, okay, maybe we don't have all the answers, but let's try so that everyone is welcomed and valued. I want to share a photo that shows what inclusion looks like. This is a photo of President Obama standing at a table, and he's typing on a QWERTY keyboard. And I'm also standing on the other side of the table, and I'm reading on a digital Braille display. President Obama, usually when he talks, he uses his voice. That's his primary form of communicating. When we explained that I'm deaf-blind and I need people to type in order for me to understand them, he made the choice to be inclusive. He chose to switch from voicing to typing. And that's what inclusion looks like. It's people making choices to be welcoming and inclusive to everyone. I want to share another video. I'm going to share a video now that also shows inclusion in a different way. In this video, a young man in Mexico is signing. He's deaf, and he's using American Sign Language. Normally, when people sign, they use their eyes. They watch what is being signed with their eyes. I can't see signing. So if I'm going to understand someone who's signing, I need them to let me put their hands over, for me to put my hands over their hands to feel what they're signing. That's different from traditional signing. It's called tactile sign language. And it's not my dominant language. My dominant language is English. Written English is my primary form of communication. But when I want to connect with people, I too make choices to be inclusive. If someone prefers sign language, I'll try using sign language, even though it's not my primary form of communication. Because I want to connect with people. I want people to be inclusive, and I want to be inclusive. I want to represent the values that I preach. So that's one example. In another video, another form of communication is dance. And in dance, usually people think in order to dance, you have to hear the music or you have to see what people are doing. But it's our choice to be inclusive. And I found a dance community in San Francisco that values inclusion. So I can't hear the music, but I can feel the rhythm and musicality through people's hands. And some of the signals in salsa dancing are visual, and I can't see them. So the people I dance with can choose to convert that signal to tactile signals. And it's an easy choice. One just needs to be mindful and aware of what they're doing. It can happen in sign language, in salsa, and other different communities all over India. So it's our choice. Next slide. Innovation happens through exploration. When we explore, we learn and develop new things. A jungle gym symbolizes this because a jungle gym has many different ways to get to the top. We have a photo of me climbing a jungle gym. It's about 15 feet tall. It's rope-based, pyramid-shaped. And unlike other structures in the playground, usually in life, we think of paths or ladders with just one way to do something. But there are multiple ways to do something. And when you're creative, you can find a new way, and it benefits your entire community. So that's why I love jungle gyms. Throughout our history, disability has driven innovation. Many of the technologies we use today have been inspired by disability. In 1808, in Italy, there were two friends, one blind, one sighted. They wanted to be able to send each other letters, but letters at that time needed to be written by sight. You had to be able to look and see what you're writing. Some blind people at the time would dictate their letters and someone else would write it down for them. They couldn't do this. These two friends wanted to keep their letters secret. They were love letters. So they thought, what can we do to keep this secret, yet still write each other letters? And they developed one of the first working typewriters. Typewriters uses hands, sense of touch, to be able to produce print. You don't need to be able to see to be able to write a letter on a typewriter. And now, all over the world, many people use keyboards. And some of the fastest letter writers are keyboardists using touch typing. This is an example of how disability and difference drives innovation and encourages us to build new things. It's an asset to our community to have people with disabilities. Disability is an untapped talent. There are 1.3 billion people with disabilities all over the world. That's almost the size of China. So it's an asset to be able to connect with this community and build products, design services that are inclusive so more people can access them. In terms of technology and digital space, it's really important that technologies are designed with accessibility in mind. The Web Content Accessibility Guidelines and Apple and Android Accessibility Guidelines helps people design products that are accessible. One main accessibility feature is called screen readers. And screen readers converts graphical information to speech or digital braille. And I'll show you a short video that gives an example of screen readers. A screen reader is a program that converts graphical iPad, and the Apple Watch. So when I'm using my phone, I use Voiceover. Voiceover can speak out loud and send information to the digital braille display.
News. Checking for news. National Geographic. Unread. World's largest rodents on lamb from Toronto Zoo.
I'm panning right on the braille display using the advanced forward button. If I wanted to instead use hand gestures on the iPhone, I could flick right with one finger. To open an item, I can double tap anywhere on the screen.
Text size. Caption. Title. Title. World's large title. After escaping from the High Park Zoo in Canada, 2 capybaras have eluded capture by Jason Biddle. Published June 9. Most people do their best to avoid rodents of unusual size. But after a pair of capybaras escaped from Toronto's High Park Zoo on May alert. Gordon. Hi, I'm at the door. Sushi. Pot of food. Fish cake with swirl design.
My friend's at the door, so I'm just gonna let him know.
Close. Button. Reply. Button. Messages notification. Hang. In. There. I'm almost done with this demo. Send. Button.
Voiceover has allowed me to access more information, news, mail, and messages, and it's also a way for me to know when friends are at the door. Thanks for watching. Bye. So accessibility features like screen readers allows blind individuals to access websites and mobile applications. So if you build your technology accessibly with screen readers, then blind individuals can access it. Captioning is when text appears on screen for videos so that deaf individuals can access the videos. So including captions on videos ensures deaf individuals can access them. It's also important to have support for assistive devices like braille displays and switch controls. Switch controls benefit individuals with mobility disabilities, and Bhavna benefits from switch controls. So it's important to make sure that all the technology we use, websites, apps, other services, are designed with accessibility in mind. And these are just some of them. You can keep innovating. You can keep developing new ways for us to connect and engage in the world. Next slide. Planning for accessibility from the start helps ensure access. And there are guidelines, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, Apple and Android Mobile Accessibility Guidelines to help with that process. We're also here to help with that process. Engage with us. The disability community is a powerful resource. There are many organizations here in India to help answer these questions of how to design with accessibility in mind. So engage with the disability community. Last but not least, make sure you teach others in your community what you know. Teach that disability is an asset. Disability brings value to communities. The more people who know that, the more inclusive our communities will become. Now I'm going to switch to questions and answers so we can have more of a conversation. Ariane will type questions on a keyboard and I'll read on the digital braille display. Give us one moment to get set up. Thank you.
Questions, right? Questions, please.
many of these innovations also cost a lot of money. So in a country like India, where there's large number of disabled people who cannot afford, do you have some ideas on how we can make them affordable to large class?
Helen Keller was a deaf-blind woman in the United States who was successful, and she did not have access to these computers. So it's not about money, it's about attitude. Does the community have the desire to be inclusive? Because there are non-technological solutions. If I didn't have access to this, I could sign. Signing just requires your body. So it's about communities choosing to be inclusive and finding solutions that are available within the community. There are organizations that will help fund these technologies, but I don't want to stress on technology being the solution. Technology is just a tool. The solution starts with people.
Your brother was blind as well. What happened to him? I mean, did he also come to the United States, or is he still back in Eritrea? In which case, where is he now? Metaphorically.
My brother is also in the United States, and we were both very lucky in that the part of the United States where we live is very inclusive. But a lot of cities and towns in the US are not inclusive. So I know many people with disabilities in America who struggle because their communities are not inclusive. That's why I decided to become a lawyer, to help change America and make America more inclusive. So it's really up to the individual communities down at the city level to make choices to say this school is going to be integrated and everyone's going to have access, including students with disabilities. So my brother now works as a computer instructor, and he teaches people with disabilities how to use computers.
Oh, I have a question, yeah. So actually I have two. One is about the rights aspects. As a lawyer, what kind of legal framework do you think is needed to see the rights of disabled people in the community? Another one I have is about children, because in all that you say, I'm sure there is a lot of, big struggle and determination to achieve whatever you have achieved. Now, how much can we demand of children as it is, with disability, when they're, suffering from a lot? We cannot put extra pressure and possibly cause more anxiety or, create more pressure.
For the children, it's important that the children are surrounded by teachers and family members who believe in them, which I was. I was not a good advocate when I was a child. I did not self-advocate until I was older. It's really, really hard for kids to advocate for themselves, disabled or not. So being surrounded by teachers who encourage you to succeed and believe in you, that makes a huge difference. And to your question about laws, it's important that disability rights are human rights, are civil rights. We need to move away from charity thinking and instead focus on value thinking. So Sometimes people say help people with disabilities because you need to help people who are less fortunate than you. That creates hierarchies of people with good lives, people with bad lives. It's not good to have hierarchies like that. So it's good to move away from charity-based models and instead focused on human rights and civil rights-based models.
Yeah, I have one question. I had a student, PhD student, who was...
India, now in the present monetary crisis, a lot of human violation is there to the normal persons itself. What about the physically handicapped persons? It is also how they are going to face, I don't know. What is the government is going to do, and what are the things we can take up to the government level now. As early innovation or any change has come, can come only slowly only. We can, even the government should implement it, but they are not doing all at a time.
Could you repeat the first part of that question?
It's all about human rights violation. The present monetary demonetization itself, lot is taking place. People are not able to access the banks, even for their needs. So what about the lot of the people who are physically handicapped will be also be suffering. So we need to take up with the government.
People who have physical disabilities, who use wheelchairs or have other physical disabilities, they have rights too. We're all human and we're all valued. We should try to move towards communities where all humans are valued equally, regardless of their abilities. That would be the ideal community. Same goes for psychiatric disabilities and visible disabilities. All humans have value.
It's a question of about those who are of differently abled.
Sorry, could you talk louder?
Yeah, those who are differently abled, their access to physical gymnasiums and sports. I had a PhD student who was differently abled, a postdoc. She was extremely badly treated by the university. She went to Israel, and there she has access to a gymnasium called Spivak, and apparently that's meant for people with differently able. So is there such organizations across the world in US and other places which enable differently able people to take part in physical sports and other activities?
Absolutely, many organizations. And India has a Paralympic team. There are athletes here in India who have disabilities. There's a gym near my house. It's open to the public for everybody. And there are machines there at that gym that people with physical disabilities who use wheelchairs can also access, so they can work out alongside their non-disabled neighbors and friends. It's an inclusive gym with equipment that everybody can use. So it's a mainstream integrated gym. It's always better to have a community that everyone can join rather than having a separate gym, a separate school. Throughout our history, separate often usually means it's not equal. Usually they might start out with good intentions, but eventually the separate school ends up being inferior to the mainstream school. and that's not fair. We want equal. So the goal should be to have a mainstream gym with equipment for all types of people. I also want to add that I really like the word disabilities, and the reason is that that word is tied to civil rights. In the United States, we have the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And for the whole world, there's a United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So the word disabilities is attached to civil rights and human rights. So for me, that's a powerful word, and I prefer using that word to differently abled or other words.
I have two questions actually. First, how do you change the mindset of, because the mindset plays a very important role, right? How do you change the mindset of the people in the government and all that? They're the main for the policies and all that. Yes. And I heard accessibility in US is very good and it's very good and very inclusive. And yes.
Karthik wants to know, how do you change the mindset of people, particularly people?
Yes, at top level.
Particularly people in the government. Accessibility in America, you have roads that access, everything is accessible in America. In a country like ours, can I add on to your sorry. In a country like ours, access is so difficult, and you have to change the mind. And you have to change the mindset of people in the government and at the policy makers to make things accessible.
We may have the decision, but they need to have the principal makers of the government. We may have the decision to change, but they have to make the change.
We may have the desire to change, to make the changes, but how do you change the mindset of the policymakers and the government to implement that?
So I would start by asking, why do policymakers think negatively of disability? And oftentimes it's because they've only been exposed to negative stories. The only stories they hear about disability are people with disabilities being a burden, being problems, causing trouble. They only see negative stories. So to change their mindset, we need to highlight and spotlight positive stories. People with disabilities being an asset, contributing, brilliant, hardworking. The more they hear that, then their mindset can change. So connecting with people in the media and encouraging that more positive disability stories reach the media. The media is a powerful tool. I have relationships with people in media in the United States, and being a good advocate means connecting with the media here in India as well. So one way of changing the mindset is working with journalists and asking them to put more stories of positive disability portrayals, and that will help change mindset.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed listening to you. I'd like to hear a little more about your days in school, especially in an inclusive classroom. How was it to be in a classroom? Were there challenges in terms of making friends? And how did you relate to your peers? If anybody teased you, what did you do? So let's hear a bit about your school days, because that's a big challenge here in India.
It is really, really hard to make friends when you're different. And it requires you to be very, very comfortable with who you are. So first, it was really hard for me to make friends. I had to first feel comfortable being different. I had to be able to explain, I'm deaf-blind. This is how I need you to communicate with me. And once I managed the art of communicating and explaining to people how I want to connect, then they began connecting. It took many years for me to get comfortable with that. At first, I didn't want to be different. I wanted to try to be like everyone else. I wanted to be cool, which at that time meant blending in with the crowd. And then I realized that's not going to work. That's not me. I'm different. I don't want everybody to be my friend. I want wonderful, hardworking, brilliant people to be my friends. So I started to just focus on being me and the communication I need. I'm not interested in trying to please everyone. There are some people who are not comfortable because I'm different. But there are wonderful people out there who are interested in connecting and want to learn how to connect. And those are the people who become friends.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that bit about preferring the usage of the word disabled and disability, especially since for more than a year now we have been struggling with a term which has been bestowed on us by the Prime Minister of the country, and that term is Divyang, which kind of translates to divine bodies, not even differently abled. It's like close to God, because the logic is that if you do that, then perhaps people will be nicer and value people with disabilities more. Okay, now that's just the precursor to the question. The actual question is, one, with respect to a controversy right now, which is, what are your feelings on the worldwide trend towards cochlear implants? Because that's big in India right now, and that seems to be pretty much a pretty easy way of governments to spend money. Two, and this is the law-related question. I don't know if you're aware, but we are in the process of hopefully soon passing a new law on disability. In your opinion, is it possible for a law on disability rights to include what happens when people don't have legal capacity? And secondly, just how many disabilities are there covered by America's law? Because we just jumped from 7, I think, to 20. And as it is, people are fussing about that.
And what?
Fussing.
Sorry, the last sentence.
Yeah. Yeah. How many disabilities are acknowledged under American law? How many conditions? Because we just jumped from 7 to hopefully 20, and that itself has people getting a lot hot and bothered.
You asked.
Just 1 minute, excuse me. So you kind of jumped ahead of me.
And the reason I'm jumping in now is that the question I had was more or less the same thing that she's asking. So I will formulate it this way. Is there,
Sorry, can you talk into the mic?
could you define what a person with disability means? There is a lot of debate on this, and India, they have now somehow decided that there are exactly 19 forms of disability which are recognized. And all this is related with entitlement. And so people are trying to define disability, so I would like you to give an inclusive definition of disability. So I think we are on the same bandwidth, that's why.
It's a really great question, and there have been lots of debates about it in the United States as well. It becomes problematic to try to have a list of all the disabilities because humans keep changing. New disabilities emerge. What happens if they're not on the list? Do those people not have civil rights? So it's better to move away from the list and instead have an inclusive definition. For example, the main one being used is a significant impairment affecting a substantial life activity. Substantial life activity could be breathing, walking, thinking, seeing, hearing, all of the main components. So something that significantly affects a substantial life activity. That's the main definition of disability. Shall I move on to the other questions? So one of the points raised is about the new word that is used in India as having the definition of people with disabilities being divine bodies. And it reminds me of conversations I have about the word inspiration. When people call me inspirational, it's like they're putting me on a pedestal, and it creates a hierarchy of different levels of people. That's not equal. We should all be at the same level, everyone equal. I love inspiration used as a verb. I'm inspired to make my school accessible. I'm inspired to build an inclusive website. If it's towards taking action, then it's positive and benefiting the whole community. But if it's a label, putting someone on a pedestal, that's not effective. That just perpetuates hierarchies. So I can sort of understand the conversations that are going on now regarding the new term. And I believe there's another question, but I'm forgetting it. Can you remind me?
Is it possible for a law, an all-encompassing law on disability rights? Okay, so the law is called the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. And is it possible to discuss questions, or rather, is it possible to discuss situations where a person lacks capacity, legal capacity, in a rights-based law? Is it appropriate?
Laws are written to reflect the community's values, and laws that see disability, access, and inclusion as a civil rights and frame it as a civil rights will benefit the community, because it reminds those who don't believe it that they should, that they're required to see disability as something that they need to accommodate because it's a civil right and everybody has value.
Excuse me. Hello. I want to have questions on accessibility when it comes to in legal field. In all, it's a high court says it's ancient, we can't change. And when it comes to law, like other, in all legal fields as well as beach, we said we can't make it accessible. It's because there is environmental issues. Could you tell, please? These are the questions. How do we make it happen? Access.
Do you mean when there's a historic ancient site that's not accessible and you want it to be accessible? Yes. Yeah, we've come across those issues in the US as well with old buildings, and the key is to try to find a compromise where there's access for people with disabilities and you maintain the structure. Another thing to keep in mind is those structures need to be updated and renovated. So the Americans with Disabilities Act, it has a provision where, okay, you can excuse historic buildings. However, if you're renovating and making an update to it, those renovations and updates need to be accessible. Sometimes if you have an architect who's experienced with disability access, they can find a way to make it accessible while maintaining the historic nature of the site.
Her second question is about beach accessibility. Like environmentalists are against any construction in beach because it is a natural source. So we are also coastal zone, and in Chennai we are trying to work with the Corporation of Chennai, but it's not been possible because no construction is allowed by the coastal zone regulations. And what are the materials like that is being used in an access in beach to make it accessible across the world wherever you have gone, so that we can suggest that to our corporation?
I actually thought I saw a story in the news about a beach in India being made accessible by a removable ramp that would go down to the beach. Has there been something like that?
No, that is by explorability. In Chennai only, our alumni group have done it, but that is not a permanent one. That is a temporary one, and it is also made of artificial, aluminum ramps. So they had to remove it in a day, or rubber mats. So we want a permanent structure which is eco-friendly so that it can remain permanent, and so that it also satisfies the query of environmentalists.
That sounds like a legal issue to be taken between environmentalists and disability rights lawyers. So is there a way to find an exception for the ramp? Because access for people with disabilities is important.
I came to know that Nigeria in US, there is a road has put up in beach. Is it possible to construct a road on the beach? This is what question.
So in the United States, parks are required to be accessible. And I've heard of many, many, many parks where they build accessibility so that wheelchair users can access trails, hiking trails, going down to the beach. So this is not news to me. It's been done. So it's a matter of having the right attorney in India to find a way to gain access to these beaches. There should be a way to make an exception.
Hello. I'm interested in how you learned salsa dancing and whether you like other kinds of music and dance.
I can't really follow the music in salsa. So 90% of the time I don't know what the song is we're dancing to. I learned through touch, and I had dance instructors teach me through touch, and I intuitively follow what the lead dancer is following, what the lead dancer is leading. So it's all by feel. And I do other dances as well. Swing, waltz.
I have a question. When compared to the old times, disability sector has been improved, but still there is a major group of people.
Could you come forward? That's okay, I can see you.
When compared to the old times, disability sector has been improved, but still there are major part of people who does not know about it and know how to handle it. What's your opinion regarding it to create awareness regarding disability among the people, and also people who does not know you, how they behave towards you?
Sorry, I'm missing that question.
The first part of the...
There is a major part of people who does not know how to deal with disability, and I would like to know how to create awareness regarding the disability with all the people. This is the first question.
Teach them through stories in the media, through presentations like these, through one-on-one conversations. Deaf blindness is very, very unique. Nobody's going to know exactly how to communicate with me. I have to teach and explain to them. And through that, I've developed a community of friends who understand. So it's all about teaching and educating.
Can you tell us a little bit about how to access the canteen in Harvard Law School? That's a lovely story.
How you access the what?
The canteen in the dining room in the Harvard Law School.
So that actually wasn't at Harvard, that was at my college. I went to law school at Harvard. For college, I went to Lewis and Clark College. It's a small college in Portland, Oregon, on the west coast of the United States. And they had a practice of putting the menu outside the cafeteria, a print menu. And blind students like myself couldn't read the menu. I was paid to eat at the cafeteria, and I would go up to a station, I would get food, find a table, taste my food, and there would be a surprise. Sometimes an unhappy surprise. I was a vegetarian back then, and I wanted to practice vegetarianism, but it's hard when I'm not given choices of what food's available. So I went to the cafeteria and I said, I'm blind. I need the menu in accessible format. Braille, digital, email. Can you accommodate that? And they said, we're too busy. We can't deal with you. And I was really sad and disappointed. And after a few months, I realized, wait a minute, they're required by law to make accommodations. I started reading about the Americans with Disabilities Act, and I learned that businesses like that cafeteria are required by law to make accommodations for people with disabilities. So I went back to the cafeteria manager and I explained that as a person with a disability, they're required to provide reasonable accommodations for me, such as email or Braille. And if they refuse again, I'm going to take legal action. When I framed the issue as a civil rights, then they took me seriously. Then they agreed to change, and they started sending me the menu so that I could choose the vegetarian options, the chocolate cake, all the delicious foods. So life became more yummy at college once I learned how to advocate using the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act. And after that, I became more aware of the law and its power to create more inclusion and change attitudes from charity to civil rights. And I decided to go to law school and study law so I could help make a difference. Instead of just advocating for me, now I advocate for whole communities.
I just wanted to ask you, how did you learn to speak?
I have a unique hearing loss. I have a little bit of high frequency. So I trained myself to speak in a higher voice so that I'm speaking within the range that I could hear. All disabilities are on a spectrum. Everybody's different. Deaf blindness is a variation of vision and hearing loss. Some have slightly more, some have slightly less. So I have a little bit of vision and hearing. Right. I identify as deaf blind because I want people to know, don't use vision and hearing, use touch, use Braille, use other forms of communication. If I say I'm low vision and hard of hearing, then everyone goes, can you see my fingers? How many fingers am I holding? Can you hear this? And it becomes very frustrating and annoying. So by choosing how I describe myself, I control the conversation and I help teach people how to engage and communicate.
What's your normal voice? What's your normal voice?
I have no idea. This is my normal voice. This is what's familiar to me.
What do you do in your leisure time? How do you entertain yourself?
I dance. Didn't you see the picture?
Raghu's blind. Yeah.
When it comes to opportunities, what are the challenges you face in each time, and people should believe you and give the opportunities?
It's all about attitudes. So I love salsa dancing, but I've gone to many dance places where no one wants to dance with me because they're like, wait, she's blind. Can she dance? How'd she dance? How would I even ask her to dance? So it's all about attitudes. And then another dance place would be like, well, I don't know how, but let me go ask her. Let me go find out. It's all about attitude. Opportunities from school to leisure, it depends on the community. Communities choose whether to be inclusive or not.
First off, in addition to thanking you for a most magnificent session, I want to thank your assistant, Ariane, who has been really good with communicating our questions to you. And my second question is, I'm a physician, so pardon me if this is offensive. Was there a genetic condition in your family that both you and your brother were born blind and deaf? Do you have siblings who are not?
I have 2 siblings who are not disabled. It's a very rare form of deaf blindness. There isn't a name for it, so there isn't a named syndrome for it.
In your school days, how you include yourself in extracurricular activities like sports and fine arts and
I didn't know how because I couldn't advocate as a kid. I was very shy as a kid. I didn't know how to talk to teachers and say, I have a disability, you need to accommodate me, here's the law, here are the solutions. I didn't do any of that. But I had teachers who did all of that. So I was just a kid. I learned English, I learned math, I learned sports and games because the teachers stepped in and said, okay, this is how we're gonna make all these activities inclusive. I started learning Braille. I didn't know it was Braille. It was just dots. And I like games. So she said, can you guess what this is? Can you figure out these dot patterns? And I started learning. So it's about the attitudes of the teachers to create a positive, fun, inclusive learning environment.
ஹலோ குட் ஈவினிங் என் பேர் சிம்மச்சந்திரன் மன்னிக்கணும் ஸ்பீக்கிங் டு நோ இங்கிலீஷ் ஒன்லி தமிழ் என்னுடைய கேள்வி யாராவது இங்கிலீஷில் ட்ரான்ஸ்லேஷன் பண்ணுங்கள் இப்போ இங்கே வந்து பார்த்திங்கன்னா இந்தியாவில் வந்துட்டு பலதரப்பட்ட டிசபிலிட்டி இருக்கிறாங்க ஆனால் எஜுகேஷன் அப்படின்னு போனீங்க பார்த்தீங்கன்னா ஹியரிங் எம்பேர்டுக்கும் பிளைண்ட் பீப்புளுக்கும் ஆர்த்தோவுக்கு மட்டும்தான் இன்க்ளூஷன் எஜுகேஷன் எல்லா இடத்துலையும் கிராமங்களில் சொல்லித்தராங்களே தவிர எல்லா கவர்மெண்ட் ஸ்கூல்லையும் போகிற முடியாத மற்ற எந்த வகையான டிசபிலிட்டியும் இன்க்ளூஷனோடு படிக்கிறதுக்கான வாய்ப்புகள் இங்கே இல்லை. அதனால் அதிகபட்சமான எஜுகேஷன் அடையக்கூடிய கிராமப்புறங்களில் நிறைய இடத்துல இந்த டிசபிலிட்டி பீப்புள் வந்து அதை பாதிக்கிறாங்க. மற்ற கண்ட்ரிலேயோ மற்ற இதுலேயோ வந்து எப்படி அது மாதிரியான வேரியேஷனான டிசபிலிட்டி பீப்புள் வந்து எஜுகேஷன் பண்ணுறாங்க அப்படின்றது தெரிஞ்சுக்க ஆசைப்படுறேன்.
In India, we have people with orthopedic disability, people who are visually impaired, and people who are deaf going to mainstream schools. The others living in the rural areas do not have this opportunity because they are not included in mainstream schools. How is this in other countries and how is it in your country?
Similar problems in my own country. I would say 90% of deafblind kids in the US don't have quality education. So most of the schools in the US are not good in terms of ensuring that kids with severe disabilities gain full access to the curriculum. But there are pockets of really good environments, such as the San Francisco Bay Area, where students with disabilities gain more access And I know a lot of advocates and lawyers in the US who are working to change that so that students get more access, more opportunities. And hopefully we have lots of advocates here as well to help students gain more opportunities.
Haben, I have a question for you. I'm also an advocate like you. Just wanted to know what is the contribution in future regarding India in terms of disability, and how are you going to take India forward?
I'm here because of Bhavna, so ask Bhavna. Maybe she'll invite me again.
Hi, Haben. This is a question like, I'd like to know what are the professions available, like what are the professions people with deaf blindness condition are being involved in US?
What was the last?
Professions they are able to do by the rights and laws. Jobs. Job opportunities.
What are the professions that are accessible to deaf-blind people? Professions.
In the US or India?
Yeah, in US by rights and laws.
So within the legal system in the United States, all employers cannot discriminate. So all jobs are available if the deaf-blind person can prove that they're qualified and able to do the job. So it's about training and it's about attitude and inclusion. Right now, it's hard to prove that a deaf-blind person can drive a car. So the driving jobs are not currently available. But maybe they can be part of the car industry in other ways. Sales, computer design, management. These industries have many different job possibilities. And I know deaf-blind people in many different fields. Teachers, lawyers, counselors, all different kinds.
Okay, thank you.
One last question.
In the job. Do you have any specific reservation for job? Disabled will get this percentage of job in US.
You had mentioned that you were the first student to be admitted in. Sorry.
I really don't like pigeonholing, segregating, setting aside jobs or responsibilities for people with disabilities. Because then if a blind person, so in Spain, for example, Spain has the highest employment of blind people because most of them work in the lottery, and there's a system where only blind people can work in the lottery in Spain. As a result, if a blind person wants to become a lawyer or a doctor or something else in Spain, the employer just says, wait, why would you want to work with us? You can work at the lottery. So they become stuck and unable to work in other fields because everybody's like, you guys can just go work in the lottery. You don't need to work here. You don't need a job. You already have a job. So quotas and pigeonholing and segregating people is never a good idea. Instead, ask the person with the disability what's their dream job and try to make that job accessible.
You had mentioned that you were the first student with deaf blindness to be admitted in Harvard Law School. What kind of adaptations did they make in the classroom for you? And after you, were there other students with deaf blindness who were admitted?
I graduated in 2013. very recently. As far as I've heard, there have not been other deafblind students to go there, but I'm sure sometime in the future there will be. There were all sorts of accommodations. I'll give one example. There was a copyright exam. Copyright is a type of law. And in the exam, there was a picture, and people were supposed to look at the picture, look at another picture, and decide, are they similar enough to be copyright infringement, to be a violation of the law? I can't see the pictures. So what the professor did is he gave me the physical objects in the picture so I could feel the objects and write my essay, whether they're similar enough to be a legal violation. So that's just one example of the professor choosing to be inclusive so that I could take his exam.
The first question was, how was it, do you have any crushes on how was the marriage situations in the US and also? Marriage situations and stuff like that. Yeah. And,
he wants to know what's the marriage situation for. Okay. Did you have any crushes in college? That is the first question. And the second question is, what is the marriage situation like in the US for people with disabilities?
So marriage is two people connecting and coming together. It's up to the people. It's up to their attitudes. There are lots of brilliant people out there who can value disability and value difference and share love. So there are marriages in the US between disabled people and non-disabled people, or disabled people and disabled people. It's up to the people to be inclusive and share love across differences.
Okay.
And you asked if I've ever had crushes? Of course.
Okay, I know all of us, there are a lot of questions here in the room, but I think we're running out of time. So can we we'll take just 2 more questions, if that's okay. Just 2 more questions, please.
ப்ளீஸ் இப்போ என்னன்னு பார்த்தீங்கன்னா, இப்போ இந்தியாவில் வந்து 40% மேலே இருந்தால் தான் அவங்க டிசபிலிட்டினே அவங்க கணக்கெடுத்தில் எடுத்துக்கிறாங்க. வேர்ல்டு ஃபுல்லாக அப்படி தான் இருக்குதா, இல்லை கண்ட்ரிக்கு வந்து பர்சன்டேஜ் வச்சு தான் டிசபிலிட்டி, இவங்க தான் டிசபிலிட்டி அப்படின்னு அங்கீகரிக்கிறாங்களா?
As per the Indian law, we have a particular system of giving people disability certificates, so which is a percentage that's given on the certificate, and anybody who has 40% and above, if the disability is 40% and above, only they are considered as disabled or entitled to anything, any social protection program that the government has to offer. Is that the same in the US?
There's a different program in the US. There's social services in the US for people who cannot work. It's not so much about disability. I'm disabled, I can work, I'm not qualified for social services. It's more about, can the person not find work? That's more of the system.
Excuse me. We talk about disability as a whole, and personally we are not able to handle our own disability, how you handled your disabilities.
What do you mean you're not able to handle your disability?
Your own personal disabilities that you will have, that you will not be able to handle. In socio-economical way. Yeah, job.
What do you mean by having a disability you can't handle and jobs? Sorry, I'm confused.
Okay, her question is, how did you manage?
How do you come to your own perspective of disability?
Come to terms with your own disability, your own. And get comfortable with it.
It helped to have a lot of role models. So I met a lot of confident people with disabilities, and I saw their confidence, and I thought, if they can do it, I can do it. So I started to accept my difference and focus on how I'm different rather than trying to be like everyone else. So giving children and adults with disabilities access to role models so they can learn from each other, that's a great way to spread confidence.
Okay, I think we should, Dr. Sundar here is going to give the vote of thanks. And there was another question that people had. Is it okay to give people your email ID so that they could communicate with you and ask their questions? Because there are quite a few questions still.
Is my contact info on the screen? It was. Yeah, so my email and website are available. It's contact@habengirma.com, and my website is habengirma.com. There are videos, and you're also welcome to follow me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I share many stories on there as well.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much, Haben, for enlightening us and having shown us how to fight for one's rights and do something about it. So we won't take your time anymore. So it is customary at such events for somebody to give a vote of thanks. So if you will permit me a few moments where I thank the many people who made this very enjoyable evening possible. So first and foremost, I should thank Bhavna for having me. So please give her a great hand. And next, I should, of course, thank Vidya Sagar for their help and for having given us Bhavna for what she is.
And there are many people who have helped in arranging this, like technical staff, people who help us with the systems. I see 2 or 3 of my institute people like Jagir and people who have helped to make all this possible. And Krishna Balaji of our institute who helped set up the food arrangements and so on. And also your own Balaji who came and helped set up Bhavna's what switch is it called? I forget. Huh? No. That switch that Bhavna wants. No, some particular switch that she needed. Aditi, is it? That switch? Okay. Which that Balaji brought here and helped set up. And it also kind of gave our computer people a sense of what was needed by people with disabilities. And anyway, the list is too long. I think I'll stop here. So thank you all for being here, and thank Haben and Ariane for a wonderful and patient being a biomedia for us.